Hey guys, how we doing today? This is Pete Stamison with Pete Stamison Real Estate Group at RE/MAX, and we are fortunate enough to be with Randall Kaiden, and we are going to hear what he has to say about estate planning and elder law. So, Randall, who are you? Could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I'm Randall Kaiden. My company is called Kaiden Elder Law Group, and we help families with estate planning and elder law.
Excellent. And how long have you been doing that?
I was first licensed to practice in 1996 and started in the estate planning world roughly around 98, 99, doing estate planning and financial elder abuse cases.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference between estate planning and elder law?
That's a great question. I lecture quite frequently about this, and really the difference is best summed up with a question. In other words, when people ask me what's the difference between estate planning and elder law, I always answer the question of that estate planning really asks the question of what happens when I die. And elder law really asks the question of what happens if I live and live and live. Now, if we go back 20 years ago, estate planning, the question of what happens when I die, was really a critical one from a tax perspective because transfer taxes were so high. Nowadays, pretty much everyone can give away their entire estate tax-free, let's say over 99.9% of society.
Wow.
So the tax issues are not really the crucial issue anymore. Also with estate planning, we want to avoid a probate court proceeding, which can be a long, expensive proceeding. And that's important, but let's say not, in my mind, not nearly as important as the elder law question of what happens if I need long-term care? What happens if I need care in the home, or it's costing me an arm and a leg to pay for care as I age, and I could literally run out of funds. Well, that is a question that many, many middle-class Americans are facing and are going to continue to face as time goes by. And unfortunately, most people don't realize that they can get help from the government, public benefits such as Medi-Cal to help pay for care, even at home, or veterans aid and attendance pension benefits. When I lecture to veterans, I find that most veterans, they've heard of compensation claims. In other words, they were hurt while they were in the military, but almost 100% of them have never heard of a pension claim, which is more of a combination between, let's say, Social Security and Medicare. It helps pay for long-term care costs. Okay?
Wow. I don't think enough people know about elder law.
Yeah.
Most of the time you hear about estate planning, you hear about
Yeah.
probate and trust. So typically, if somebody wanted to come in for estate planning,
Yes.
like how long would that process typically take from when they reach out to you maybe to when the process is complete?
Yeah, I'd say that the typical timeline is probably 2 to 4 weeks from beginning to end.
Okay.
But that's more a function of people taking their time to get it done.
Got it.
Probably about once a month, we have to drop everything, and as a team, we'll put together an estate plan in one day. This is usually when we have to run down to the ICU and get it done because there's some kind of an emergency. Okay. So we have the capacity to do it in one day. And also another interesting thing about to contrast that with the elder law, elder law, the quickest we're ever going to get it done is about 3 months, but it's more like 3 to 12 months rather to get it done. It's far more complicated, far more goes into it than estate planning.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. I know that when you helped us put together our family trust and our estate planning,
Yes.
I know that it was us who lagged because we were forced to actually look at and make decisions, and ask both of us, my wife and I, had to ask each other some very probing questions, right? That maybe we weren't used to. But, once you get through that, and it's like an absolute no-brainer. It's like, oh my gosh, why did we wait so long to do this? Why did we? And so that's what I think the most common question is, because in my business, a lot of times I run into so many people that just, they have not set up, they have not done estate planning, and it's like, you have no idea what could potentially happen if you don't set that up properly now.
Right, and I think one of the main issues there is with younger families and who have young children, they don't really take the time to think about the what ifs, and nobody likes to think about it, but what if both my spouse and I are gone? Who's gonna be there to take care of my kids? And if you don't name guardians to take care of your kids, well, geez, it could be anyone.
Right.
And really, you ought to be naming people to care for your kids that would bring up your kids in the manner that you would want them to be brought up in.
So true.
And not to have leave that to chance.
Leave that up to the state?
The state or some, let's say, rogue family member or somebody that
Right.
you wouldn't have wanted
To begin with.
And they may not even realize that because you don't want to tell them, oh, I would never want you raising my kids,
Right. Right.
And so it's really important to name that. And of course, some of the other main reasons that people will set it up is to avoid that probate proceeding. And really, if you own any property in the state of California and you don't have a trust set up, your estate is probably going to pass through the probate process. Similarly, if you have over $150,000 in assets, you can't do what's called a small estates affidavit to move it outside of probate, so you're going to be in the probate process.
And what is that process? I mean, how long does that process typically take?
Good question. In California, it's a pretty grueling process. It takes 1 to 2 years, let's say, from beginning to end to get it done.
And with that 1 to 2 years, time and money?
Time and money, yeah. There are statutory fees. Sometimes people think, oh, I can shop around for different law firms when it comes to probate, and they're going to get a deal or something. But there's no such thing. The fees are statutory. They're set for all attorneys in the state of California, and so those fees can be quite substantial, and they're not based on the net value of the estate. They're based on the gross value of the estate. So, for example, if you got $1 million home and you have a $900,000 loan on it, you might think, well, there's only $100,000 in equity, and that's really all that's going through probate, but that's not how the law looks at it. They're looking at the complete value of the home, the $1 million, and that's what they're basing the probate fees on, both for the law firm and for the executor of the estate. So, on $1 million home, you're probably looking at close to $50,000 in fees.
Wow. That you could completely and totally eliminate if you had established your estate planning in a living trust.
Correct, yeah.
Wow.
And then, of course, we have the healthcare issues. These days, we're always a little bit behind in the law when it comes to medicine. Medicine is making breakthroughs all the time, and it's advancing quite rapidly. But if you don't have your wishes in writing, of course, all sorts of odd things can happen. Probably the most famous case has been the Terry Schiavo case.
Right.
And the Terry Schiavo case, you had the warring parents with the husband, on the right to take her off of life support. And that fight went on and went through up to the Supreme Court, and all sorts of craziness occurred with that. And so, if you don't have that power in place, you haven't given somebody that kind of power, unfortunately, we call the pull the plug power, let's say, nobody necessarily will be able to do that, and that could cause all sorts of fights. And we're actually having some more advanced kinds of powers coming out now that you haven't seen in estate plans before. One is called the Advanced Dementia Directive, and this has to do with somebody who gets Alzheimer's. They've got, let's say, stage 6 Alzheimer's or higher, and they might not want to go on in that kind of condition. And there are things that we can actually do today that we couldn't even do 6 months ago.
Wow.
And so there's
Really?
Yeah. So we're progressing. We have actually 4 different sets of forms now that we execute with the estate plan just concerning healthcare matters. And so a lot of people, they think, oh, I've done my estate planning, it's one and done. But actually, this area of law is constantly changing. And so I don't think it's
evolving.
It's evolving, yeah. So you want to address these things. You want to revisit it every now and then. First of all, to see about the changes in the law, but second of all, a lot of times there's changes in the family dynamics and life, and so things happen there that would make you want to change your estate plan. So you definitely need to get it reviewed every now and then.
Absolutely. When you mentioned the dementia recently, is that somebody may not want to continue down that path? You're saying almost like they could make a choice to.
In certain scenarios, when it comes to feeding, if you're being force-fed, let's say in that situation, there's a lot of people who have Alzheimer's. They may not want to eat anymore. They can't be fed, and so you can maybe feed them, but they might aspirate. They might be coughing up, and so then they get a tube that's sent down their throat and to force feed them essentially. And in those kinds of scenarios, it can be possible to remove that, and so you're not keeping a person alive in that kind of condition. Now, a lot of people don't like the thought of that kind of planning, but some people do. The point is there are alternatives, and you need to decide for yourself what it is that you want.
That's interesting, really interesting. So I think, at this point, anybody that has not considered estate planning, that has been on the fence, it'd be a great opportunity for you to reach out to Randall, reach out to his office. He can help you. And those of you that maybe, how many years do you recommend that your estate planning needs to be reviewed? How often?
That's a good question. I would say it's not so much based on years. It's more based on changes in family, family dynamics. So, for example, I'll get this case every now and then where, a parent's got a few kids, and when they were younger, they wanted things distributed equally to their kids after they're gone. But then, they start to notice that one child, say it's a daughter, is having a lot of problems with her husband, and they feel like there's maybe a pending divorce on the horizon, and they're really concerned about their son-in-law walking away with their estate. And so they want to engage in asset protection planning to protect their daughter in that situation. So that's a very clear-cut situation where a person might want to come in of their own volition and say, look, we need to change this right now. And then also, of course, changes in the law. So I'd say probably about, at least once every 5 years, you want to have the conversation to see if there's been updates and things that you might want to implement that you don't currently have in place.
Fantastic. That's great. I learn something new every day. Every day I get to spend time with you. So is there anything else that you want to add?
Another tool, it's a good question. And I was just thinking about that as you were saying that one of the main tools that we're using these days is what's called trust protectors. In the past, the main players in the trust were the settlers or the grantors, the people who set up the trust, the trustees, the people who are in the power of the trust, and then the beneficiaries of the trust. And that would originally be the people who set up the trust, but ultimately loved ones later on. Well, nowadays, very often we're putting in what's called trust protectors, which is more analogous to, let's say, a judge sitting in a court of law, and they're able to make decisions if fights arise, or let's say they need to be tiebreakers, or maybe even remove a trustee for not acting appropriately. And it's able to save a lot of problems and money and litigation in the future if you are able to put a trust protector in your trust in advance, somebody that you know and trust to make that kind of decision, they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of the trust like the trustee, but they're kind of a safety measure. And a lot of times I'll analogize trust to cars. If you go back 30 years ago, we didn't have anti-lock brakes, we didn't have airbags, we didn't have GPS, we didn't have a lot of the safety restraint systems that we do today. And constantly as technology improves with cars, they become safer and safer. And the same thing applies to trust. A lot of times we're redoing trust for people who haven't looked at their trust in 20, 30 years. And they're sort of flabbergasted to realize that it's a completely different vehicle these days.
You're right. That's a really interesting comparison, the anti-lock brakes and that modern technology to the trust. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so it makes it interesting for us, and it enables us to plan much better for our clients. So it's definitely, I would say 2/3 of our business is actually rewriting old trusts that other attorneys have prepared. And people are quite amazed about all the different things that we can do now. And of course, their life has changed and the law has changed. And so, it was great that they did the trust before. It would have avoided a probate. Something could have occurred before. It named guardians for minor children, but that was at a different stage in life. Now maybe their kids are in college or married in their 20s and 30s, and everything has changed. So we need to change the estate plan as well.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Last question I'll ask you. I'll see it in magazines, I'll see it in various parts of Santa Clarita. I'll see these companies that are offering to build a trust for a flat fee, a small upfront fee, not non-attorney backed. What is the risk of doing that, and why do you think? Why are you an advocate? Obviously,
right. So, of course, like many things in life, you get what you pay for.
Right.
And that sounds maybe self-serving coming from an attorney, but the truth of the matter is, if you look into this, what's occurred in the past, for example, We the People was shut down for the unauthorized practice of law, and they had about 3 or 4 different law firms that they assigned the different files to. And statistically speaking, it was about 2/3 of the trusts were a complete nightmare. Not done correctly, not funded, would have caused problems. They all had to be rewritten.
Wow.
Interestingly enough, one of my assistants used to work for We the People.
Really?
And you know what she told me? She said they just hire people, you know, straight out of high school essentially, with no training on the first day. They say, go ahead and create a trust or
Come on.
do a
That's
divorce
scary.
dissolution.
That's
you know,
scary.
and they just have directions. They say, oh, you just do this and that, and
Wow.
and she told me, you know, she had no idea what she was doing.
Right.
And even after working there for years and years, and I hired her and I trained her after that, she came back to me and she said at some point, I can't believe how wrong we've been doing everything for so long.
That's kind of scary. I mean, that is really scary,
Yeah.
because it's one of those things that, and the people that do that, they don't actually know that something is wrong when they get their trust. They don't know until it's actually time where they need,
Until it's tested.
and that's scary.
Yeah, and you know, I would even go beyond that to say that unfortunately, there's a lot of attorneys who are doing, let's say, estate planning, maybe a little bit of estate planning, a little bit of personal injury, a little bit of bankruptcy work, real estate. They're
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Master of none. Yeah. And so people walk away with a peace of mind that they've done things correctly, and then later on they find out, or their loved ones find out, that it wasn't done correctly. So unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion in this area. I'm a firm believer, just like if you need heart surgery, you go to a heart surgeon.
Right.
You know, if you need a particular kind of surgery or dentistry, you're not going to a generalist, you're going to a specialist.
Absolutely.
And so at our firm, this is all we do is estate planning, elder law, post-death administration of estates. And, you know, if you're going to an attorney who's doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you're probably not getting a superior product. It might be a little bit better than We the People or a LegalZoom or something like that, but I think we live in a world now where you really want to make sure that you have a specialist doing what it is that you need to get done.
Absolutely, 100% agree. No, that's fantastic. What's the best way for somebody maybe that's watching this video? What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you if they want to have you take a look at their current trust, or if they want to do some estate planning and elder law?
I would say you just look us up on the internet and give us a call to make an appointment, and we can go and dive into the details of your particular situation, and we can tell you what we can do for you. You know, our telephone number here is 661-247-8433. Or you can just look up Kaiden Elder Law Group on the internet, and you'll see our various locations, and wherever and whenever it's convenient for you, make an appointment and let's talk.
Fantastic. And, you know, I'm a walking testimonial for Randall and his firm. I was referred to him by a family member of mine who had also used him for estate planning, and fantastic experience. And I've since referred him to many of my own clients and highly recommend his services. So do yourself a favor. If you've been on the fence, get off that fence and get it done.
Thanks so much for that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it.
Yeah.